Hello dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. D.C. Saxena, Professor and Head of the Department of Food Engineering and Technology at Sant Longowal Institute of Engineering and Technology, Longowal. I am here to present the paper Technology of Spices and Condiments. As you know, the spices are being sold in the market in the good form and in the powder form, and making the powder, grinding is an important step, and the quality of spices is dependent upon the process of grinding. So this particular aspect will be explained to you by my co-author Mr. Narender Kumar in the present module.
Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Narender Kumar from Sant Longowal Institute of Engineering and Technology. Today, I am going to talk about module 34 of paper number 10, that is Technology of Spices and Condiments. In this module, we will be discussing about grinding quality of spices. The value of the spice trade is particularly dependent on quality and spices in the international trade. The global spice trade is expected to increase with the growing consumer demand in importing countries for more exotic ethnic taste in the food products. The trade in the processed and the value-added spice ingredient is, however, growing rapidly. As you know, importers looking for cheaper global source of the spice products and exporting businesses develop the appropriate technologies, quality system and standards. As far as European Union Commission is concerned, the Spice Trade Organization, in collaboration with the European Commission and with the national standards, they have collaborated the standards in the spice production across the globe. Spice products should be stored and transported under conditions that maintain the integrity of the container in which they have been transported, and the product within it need to be taken care. Carriers should be clean, dry, weatherproof and free from infestation, and sealed so as to prevent water, rodents or insects from reaching the products. Spice products should be loaded, transported and further unloaded in a manner that protects them from any damage or from the water. While insulated carriers or refrigerated vehicles with the temperature tag, biosensors and RFID, radio frequency identifiers, are recommended when climatic conditions and internal conditions of a refrigerated van needs to be checked, monitored and controlled during the transportation, and even the history of the transportation need to be checked. Indicate such a need of the biosensors, identifiers and temperature tags leads us to invent the further systems for the check and monitor of the spices during the transportation. Extreme care should be taken so as to prevent the condensation when unloading the spice products from a refrigerated vehicle or while taking out from a cold store. In this module, we will be discussing control of infestation by insects and mites in case of spices, storage and transport of the grinded spices, and product specification of the spices, and hygienic requirements in the production of the spices. Introduction. This code of hygienic practice applies to spices and dried aromatic plants. Plants may be as a whole plant, broken part of the plant, grounded part of the plant, or blend of one, two, or more than two plants. It covers the minimum requirements of hygiene for harvesting, post-harvesting, for example, curing, bleaching, drying, cleaning, grading, transportation, and storage, including microbial and insect disinfestation. Processing further involved processing technologies, for example, grinding, blending, freezing, and freeze drying. The product obtained is further packaged and stored in the form of the processed spice products. Control of infestation by insects and mites. Spice should be stored in such a manner that infestation can be controlled by methods as anaerobic or refrigerated storage, or the storage may be done under fumigation prior to storage. Stored spices should be inspected regularly and at a fixed interval. If infested, fumigation can be applied by appropriate method. If necessary, affected spices may be removed for the fumigation or could be taken out from the lot itself. In this case, the storage areas should be cleaned and disinfected separately and should be taken out of quality spices. Storage and transportation of spice products. As far as spices are concerned, the quality of the spices depend upon the storage conditions and the transportation conveyance or the vehicle through which they are transported from one place to the another place. As during storage and transportation, the abuse of the temperature and other infestation causes deterioration in the quality of the spices. Spice products should be stored and transported under conditions that maintain the integrity of the container. That means the container through which we are going to transport, it should have all the preliminary assessment in relation to that of the temperature and hygienic conditions. Carrier should be clean from the inside, dry, weatherproof, and free from the infestation, and sealed to prevent water, rodents, or insects from reaching the products, as these all results in inferior quality of the spice products. Spice products should be loaded, transported, and unloaded in a manner that protects them from any damage or water. While insulated carriers or refrigerated vehicles are recommended for transport when climatic conditions indicate such as the need of the hour. Extreme care should be taken so as to prevent the condensation when uploading spice products from a refrigerated vehicle or while taking out a cold storage. In warm, humid weather, the spices should be allowed to reach ambient temperature before exposure to the external conditions. This may require 1 to 3 days. Spices that have been spoiled are vulnerable to contamination and should be used as food. Shipping and stuffing of these spices. As far as the shipping of these spices is concerned, make sure that pallets and the wooden floors of the containers are dry and clean. Spices absorb moisture quickly if the bags get wet, and as a result, the moisture content increases considerably. Lining of a container using cardboard with a single side corrugated or waxed on inside of the container or a cardboard has proven to be the best protection against condensation for the bags which are within the container. Craft paper has also been used successfully. Control that lining is properly fastened, particularly in the ceiling, so that lining will not fall down and settle on the top bags when stuffing the container, bags, or even the bulk container. Keep spices away from the roofs. Bags should preferably be placed on a layer of pallets so as to avoid contacts with the floor when condensation from the ceiling and the walls may gather. If available, fully ventilated containers are preferable for the spices in the bags, especially if shipped from a high humidity region. Alternatively, the standard dry container with the added paper or the cardboard protection from the top or from the sides or at the doors is fully acceptable. Ventilation holes in the container are to be kept clear. Do not cover with the tape, as tape may also come within the spices during processing. Cross-contamination. Cross-contamination, particular attention should be paid to groundnuts, as it is now clear that these pose one of the highest risks for certain consumers, and therefore it is imperative that during the growing, processing, storage and transportation periods that spices are protected to prevent contamination from peanuts. Care should be taken when rotating crops to ensure that a previous allergenic crop has not left any potential cross-contamination in the growing area. It is also important that peanut derivatives such as groundnut oil are not used in any way for the processing of the spices or for the lubrication of any spice processing equipments. Processing effect on the quality. White pepper, during the manufacture of the white paper, microbial reduction agents such as chlorine are used to ensure that the quality of the processing water is maintained throughout the chain or throughout the processing. If agents like this are used, then the dose should be controlled. That means the dose of the chlorine should be monitored and controlled so as to prevent a carryover from the process onto the finished product. And the final product labels should be in accordance with the international standards. Where this type of process is used, it is declared that the buyer is aware of this and can make any labeling declaration which is required. Dressing. The use of mineral oil to the coat of the surface of the black pepper, that is the paprika or other spices, is not permitted. Use of the vegetable oil, especially the peanut oil for the reason mentioned, should be declared to the buyer. Worker hygiene. As we know, the quality of the spices also affected by the hygiene conditions maintained by the workers during the processing. Worker hygiene, personnel handling the harvest should not be suffering from any contagious disease which will cause or act as a precursor to cause foodborne health problems. In the event of absorbing such signs of diseases, the person responsible for supervising the harvesting should take the necessary measures to prevent the person or the persons from handling the harvest until they are fully cured from the disease or from the diseases. Field sanitation. As far as the sanitation of the field is concerned, they also affects the overall quality of the spices. The field sanitation standards requires the person supervising the harvesting of the crop to provide toilets, potable drinking water, and hand washing facilities to the personnel which are employed and working in the field. This ensures that each person reasonable use of the above and make sure that each person understands the importance of GHP, which are known as good hygiene practices. As the use of the spices continues to expand and develop, it is now even more important to ensure that all stages of the supply chain play their role in ensuring food safe products which are free from potential hazards and provide to global consumer market. End product as a spice should be taken for the quality assessment in terms of the microbial activity, enzyme activity, and the activity of the insects, birds, and rodents as a contamination. End product should be free from pathogenic microorganisms, enzymes, in levels that may represent a hazard to the health. It should not contain any substance originating from microorganisms, particularly aflatoxins, in amounts that exceed the tolerance or the criteria established by CAC, which is known as Codex Alimentarius Commission, or where these do not exist by the official agency having jurisdiction. It should not contain high levels of insects, birds, or rodent contamination that indicate that spices have been prepared, packed, or held under unsanitary conditions. It should not contain residues resulting from the treatment of the spices in excess of the levels which are established by Codex Alimentarius Commission, or where these do not exist. End product as a spice should comply with the provisions for food additives, contaminants, and with maximum level for the pesticide residues which are established by other agencies like National Codex Commission of India. Where they do not exist, they should be taken into account by the agency or by the jurisdiction. It should also comply with the provision for food additives, contaminants, and should comply with the rule and regulations of the states and nation. Ready to eat spices should be free from salmonella when 10 samples of 25 grams are analyzed for appropriate methods of examination. Hygienic requirements in the production of spices. As have been shown here, the production of the spices is influenced by the hygienic conditions. Here we will discuss the requirements which we need to have for the production of the quality spices. First is unsuitable growing or harvesting area. It means the conditions during the growing of the spices also contributes the total quality production of the spices. And after growing, the area where they have been put on after harvesting also affects the quality of the spices. Second is the cleaning. The cleaning process affects the quality of the spices in terms of the removal of the stones, stalks, leaves, etc. from the harvested spices. Third is protection from the contamination by waste. It means the waste may also enter into the quality products. Then is irrigation control. As we know, irrigation can also contribute some deterioration in the quality in terms of the chemical used during the irrigation. Then pest and disease control. Pest and disease control also influence the total quality of the spices. As we know, pest decreases the overall quality of the spices, and disease in the spices also results in reduction in the quantity and quality of these spices. And last is drying and packaging. A good drying condition and packaging technique also helps in sustain of the quality of the spices. Unsuitable growing or harvesting area and cleaning. Unsuitable growing conditions or harvesting areas in this spices should not be grown or harvested where the presence of potential harmful substances would lead to an unacceptable level of such substances in the final product. Next is cleaning. The spices should be cleaned properly to the desired levels prescribed in the standards established by national and international agencies like CAC. Protection from contamination by wastes and irrigation control. Protection from contamination by wastes. Raw spices should be protected from contamination by human, animal, domestic, industrial and agricultural wastes, which may be present at levels likely to be a hazard to the health. Adequate precautions should be taken to ensure that these wastes are not used and are not disposed of in a manner which may constitute a hazard to the public health through the food. Arrangements for the disposal of domestic and industrial waste in areas from where raw material as a spice are derived should be acceptable to the official agency having jurisdiction. Next is the irrigation control. Spices should not be grown or produced in areas where the water used for irrigation might constitute a hazard to the health to the consumer through the spices, as the water may contain some harmful components or water may have high chlorine content in terms of establishment of hygienic conditions. Pest and disease control, drying and packaging. As far as pest and disease is concerned, they affects the overall quality of the spices. Control measures involving treatment with chemical, physical or biological agents should only be undertaken under direct supervision of personnel who have a thorough knowledge of the potential hazards to health. Such measure should only be carried out in accordance with the recommendations of the Codex Alimentarius Commission or where these do not exist by the official agency having jurisdiction. Next is drying or curing. Plants or the parts of the plants used for the preparation of the spices may be dried naturally or artificially, provided adequate measures which should be taken to prevent the contamination or adulteration of the raw material during processing. To prevent the growth of the microorganisms, especially mycotoxins producing mold, a safe moisture level should be achieved. Suitable precautions should be taken to protect the spices from contamination by domestic animals, rodents, birds, mites, and other arthropods or other objectionable substances during drying, handling, and storage. Packaging. As far as packaging is concerned, it also affects the overall quality of the spices. Therefore, packaging should be perfect and packaging should protect the clean, dried spices from the contamination and the entry of the water or the excess moisture within the spices. As we know, excess moisture results contamination in terms of microbial activity or the mold growth. In particular, the reabsorption of the ambient moisture in the humid tropical climates should be prevented, or the spices should be stored where ambient moisture content should have to be lowered. Contamination from the mineral oils used for processing natural fiber bags should be prevented by the use of offliners where appropriate. Reusable containers should be properly cleaned and disinfected before reuse. Summary. As we know, the overall quality of the spices is not only dependent upon the harvesting conditions, the processing conditions and packaging conditions, but the overall quality of the spices and have been affected by the water which have been spoiled or have been contaminated. This code of hygienic practice applies to the spices and the dried aromatic plants as a whole, broken, ground or blended. We require the maintaining of the minimum standards and the requirements of the hygiene during harvesting, post-harvesting, processing, packaging and storage of the processed products. Stored spices should be inspected regularly and, if infested, fumigated by appropriate methods. Grinding of spices under cryogenic conditions or the grinding at lower temperature have been introduced as a processing method that causes less changes or losses to the final product in terms of the natural composition than conventional milling in terms of overall quality. The increase in the grinding temperature accelerate the process of oxidation and loss of volatiles of the spices, which lessen the standards of quality. Therefore, grinding along with the other code of hygienic practices for spices leads better product quality after grinding operation. So students, let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. We require to maintain minimum standards of hygiene during harvesting, post-harvesting, processing, packaging and storage of the processed products. Stored spices should be inspected regularly and fumigated. Cryogenic grinding of the spice has been introduced and have shown a promising technique or a processing method that causes less change in the natural composition than the conventional milling in terms of the quality of the spices. The decrease in the grinding temperature also have the advantage in the retardation of the oxidation process and loss of the volatiles of the spices, which boost up the standards of the spice quality. The spice trade is expected to increase with a growing consumer demand in importing countries for more exotic ethnic taste in food due to the availability of the quality processes, spices in terms of spice oils and oleoresins. The trade in the processed and value-added spices ingredient is, however, growing rapidly. As importers, they are looking for the cheaper global sources of spice products, and exporting businesses develop the appropriate technologies so as to achieve the better quality and standards for the spices. As far as Codex Alimentarius Commission is concerned, CSE and NCCP, which is known as National Codex Control Point, have laid down spice standards across the globe and within the nation. Spice products should be stored and transported under conditions that maintain the overall integrity of the container and the package and the product which is withheld within the package. As far as the carrier is concerned, well insulated carriers or refrigerated vans are recommended, and internal conditions of the refrigerated vans need to be checked for history of the temperature exploitation. Then monitor and control it during the transportation. Indicate such a need, that we should have to monitor the temperature of the spices from its cultivation to harvesting, post-harvesting, transportation and storage so as to have the better quality of the spices. When unloading the spice products, condensation may also leads during the spices which we take out of the vehicle. As far as carrier is further concerned, it should be clean, dry, weatherproof and free from the infestation, and should be sealed so as to prevent water, rodents or insects from the reaching of the products. Spice products should be loaded, transported, unloaded in a manner that protects them from any damage or water. This is all about the grinding quality of spices. These are the methods and the recommendations through which we can get better quality of spiced products. Thank you.
Dear students, now we see how the quality is affected by the grinding process in the case of spices. Now, we have to maintain the quality, and for that we have to follow certain rules and regulations, certain standards. And this particular aspect of national and international standards in the case of grinding of spices will be explained to you in the next module. Thank you.